I'm joined by Professor Dolores Keјhil right now. That was pretty awesome. You have quite a background. Can you maybe in like 60 seconds give me a sense of your background? I mean, you've been very close to, there was a human genome project, but you have really deciphered the proteins that are in the body. Tell me a little bit about your history, your past, and your work.
Great. Thank you. Lovely to see you again, Del. Yeah, my degree is in molecular genetics. My PhD is in immunology. I was targeting drugs and toxins like ricin to try and help brain tumor patients. And then I went on to the Max Planck and I ran a group there and I invented a technology and a suite of patents to make high content protein arrays. And at that time, it was quite disruptive. We had around 8,000 different human proteins, and we were able to test the specificity of antibodies. And we also were able to profile the antibodies in serum for people who had autoimmune diseases and cancer and viral infections. And what was very interesting is up to that time, people would characterize against 8 proteins, and we were able to characterize against 8,000. And there's about 20,000 proteins in the human genome expressed, and so I made these high content arrays. And at the time, we were then able to take published antibodies from research publications and diagnostic labs and look at the specificity and cross-reactivity of antibodies. And I also worked on a meningitis vaccine, and I worked in a class 2-3 safety lab, and then I ran that lab for about 3 years. And the last thing is to say that because of high content protein arrays, we're able to look at the specificity and cross-reactivity of antibodies, but at 1 amino acid level, so that you can actually do epitope mapping. And we were also able to profile if a person naturally cleared a virus or a bacteria like meningitis, exactly what were the proteins, the antibodies against what proteins that made them, we'll say in meningitis, not die, and then take those proteins and epitope map the antibody to the amino acid level. And I developed a company, Protogen, as you know, in 1997, co-founded it. And we were kind of quite world leaders at the time to make diagnostic assays. And also we looked at companion diagnostics for why did people respond to certain drugs and not, and also to profile people who had adverse events. So including unusual symptoms like chronic fatigue. So that's my background.
All right. I'm sure you could go on and on and on, but I don't want to do, I want to admit to Matthew McConaughey, I only understood about half of that stuff too. So we're together on that. But so I think what we can glean from this is that you understand viruses at a very, like profoundly microscopic level. You've been watching this COVID-19. I have a lot of questions for you. But I wanted to start the discussion with masks. Russell Blaylock is a world-renowned doctor who's come out and said there is a danger to wearing these things. Do you agree with him? What are your thinking when you look at disease profiles and viruses and bacteria? Are masks effective at keeping us healthy?
So I would say it's the third slide there. There's a table that just compares coronaviruses with Ebola viruses. So if it was an Ebola virus outbreak, then a mask would be affected because Ebola virus is transmitted through the air. But in the case of coronavirus, it's not transmitted through the air, it's transmitted through droplets that then would drop on the surface like a door handle. So in coronavirus, there is absolutely no need to wear a mask. And also that means there's no necessity for coronaviruses. But also I entirely agree with Professor Blaylock, who has an outstanding track record and is very experienced in this area, that because the mask is covering you, you have less oxygen, and that puts your immune system under stress. And then the latent viruses that are in your body, because you're under immune stress, will reappear. And not only will you have more coronavirus, but if you had other latent viruses, it would allow them to re-emerge. And the reason why they re-emerge is that nutrition and vitamins and stress are very important to have good nutrition, have very little stress on the body, and ensure that you have vitamins to keep your immune system working. And in this case, in coronavirus, the immune system can clear the virus within, 10 or 11 days. So I would definitively say for coronavirus, there is no need for masks. And also there is no need for social distancing. So I'm actually looking in Ireland to see whether we can take precedence cases against, legally, because the government scientists, and our Taoiseach is a doctor, and the Minister for Health, that they are making policy decisions that actually will make people sicker. So there is no need to wear masks. And also, as your early commentary, that there will be more deaths, that in the United Kingdom, for example, normally there are 5,000 people diagnosed with cancer in a month, and there's only 25,000. So there are issues around heart attacks being not treated properly, early diagnosis of cancer, and also issues around depression. So I am saying that in Ireland, any deaths that result, we'll say, from 10 days' time are entirely unnecessary. And we will be counting those deaths and holding our Prime Minister and Minister for Health personally to account, because I think it's verging on almost a crime against humanity. There are deaths, hundreds of deaths will happen because of the policies that they're doing, keeping people in their homes where they should be informed, good nutrition, vitamins, and people who have no underlying conditions and are under 70 should engage in the next 10 days and interact with society to build up the herd immunity and go back to work. And I would be saying that any closure really in Ireland after the 25th of May is unnecessary. And I would even consider, the same in America, and that perhaps people should consider actually going about their daily lives on the 25th of May, because it is entirely unnecessary what's going on.